We are live. Good morning. Happy
Morning.
Friday. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you, Cassie? It's great to see you and be here.
Yeah,
It's so
I'm
lovely.
I'm
I look
excellent.
forward to it.
Me too. Friday seems to be working out kind of well. So we may change Tuesdays to Friday. We'll see. But we
Yeah.
just want to let everyone know that Sarah is not here today under the weather stuff going on. So we're gonna just let her rest again. Her voice is not doing so hot. So she was gonna come and sit with us, but I think it's better if she just rests. So
Great.
welcome to Unlikely Conversations, where we talk about things that most people normally don't talk about because, look, quite frankly, it can be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Today, we're going to be talking about the Parenting Manifesto. But I want a disclaimer first before we get started. Please know that anything that we talk about here today is purely informational. It's our opinions and our own experiences that we're sharing. And in our own professions, we have some history. We have some. We want to make sure people understand that this is not a substitute for medical advice for a diagnosis. We highly recommend that you still go with your doctor, counselor, and get yourself assessed so that you can get the proper care. But we definitely want you to not feel like you're alone and have this conversation here so that you don't feel like anything wrong. I think that's what we're trying to avoid is people feeling disconnected and feeling like they're not worthy of talking to people about these things that are happening because quite frankly, a lot of us have them and we just don't talk about it. So
Yes.
on that
Yeah.
note, we usually start things off with an icebreaker, and I'm going to kick it over to you. I'm going to crack my office door because it's like a sauna in here. So, and just
Great.
give me 1 second.
No worries. Yeah. Yeah. I just really appreciate that we continue to remind people of this, that like, and just also I think I would put out there that, if you are listening in and you are seeking out more information or direction around how to get the right support, I think just knowing that we are people that you can talk to, and not necessarily that we can advise, but we can in some ways like let make you aware of resources and supports. And so don't hesitate to reach out if you feel like you need to be linked with additional services and you're just not sure how to go about that.
Yep. Message us, drop it in the comments below. And if you have questions, we would love to hear from you. If we won't always get to the questions today, but we will definitely come back to them next week. So please let us know that you're here. Like drop in the comments where you're from, what state, country you're listening to. What's really fun is like when you start getting people from all over the world. And so then you start getting those different cultural differences, and that's fun too. So, and maybe we'll have a guest
Yeah.
someday. I actually have a friend in Denmark, and there's a lot of conversations we've had about the differences of culture. So that could be a fun episode.
I think so too. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to pull in guests and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
as we're getting this rolling, what I'm realizing is that it is just really nice to put this information out there and you know, hopefully it will land for somebody and feel supportive to somebody. So I
Yeah.
think
Absolutely.
spread the word. If you enjoy this, spread the
Yeah.
word, share it with other people as well, for sure.
Absolutely.
Um, so in terms of an icebreaker, Cassie, we taught last week, we talked a lot about addiction in children. I mean, that's a conversation we could have like for, you know, I don't know, 12 weeks and still probably not be completely done. And I also feel the same about addiction. I think
Yeah.
it's so nuanced and there's a lot to it, but I think starting the conversation is really important. And in the process of talking about children in addiction, one of the things that I think that themes that came up, and especially when we ended with the parenting manifesto
Mhm.
that Brene Brown writes in her book Daring Greatly, is that that idea and that concept that we learn through modeling,
Yeah.
and that modeling is critical, and how we show up and engage in the world is actually, she says this in that chapter, but how we show up and engage in the world is actually, more important um more important to our children than really being a good or a bad parent, like as would be assessed. Like it's just
Absolutely.
showing up in the world is actually good parent, like showing up and showing your kids how you show up and modeling that for them is actually really good parenting.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just was thinking about like, what's an experience that you had growing up where something was modeled for you and it really clicked, and you were like, and you have carried this into your adult life, something that was modeled for you that clicked, that you've carried it into your adult life.
Well, there's a couple of things that come to mind, and I've had these conversations with my parents, know that this is okay and safe to share. So I think for me, there's a couple things that come up. So good and bad, right? Like there's good sides of modeling and there's bad
Sure.
sides of modeling. So like of course, because our brains are always trying to like assess the situation and find out what we can do better. One of the things that came up for me was unhealthy eating, and not necessarily unhealthy eating like the food that we actually ate. It was more around like don't eat this, don't eat that. There was a lot of focus on like things you shouldn't do. And I
Yeah.
totally see it being carried into my parenting and the way that I handle food with my children. We
Yeah.
were vegetarian, and so there was a lot of emphasis on like animal harm. And like I remember watching this documentary when I was like 10 or 12, and it was about like how they treated chickens in the wire cages, and it like scarred me for life. Like obviously I'm 40, almost 43, and I'm still remembering this like documentary that I probably shouldn't. It's not that I shouldn't have watched it, but I don't think I understood why. Like I didn't connect that.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think I've done for my children that I wish that I would have known better. Like I know now, so I do it differently. But like in my
Mhm.
early parenting years, I did a lot of telling them the information that I wanted them to know instead of letting them find out for themselves where they wanted to go.
Yes.
So that's probably the biggest like negative modeling is around belief systems. Like my parents told me what they believed and never gave me the option to know like, oh, you could believe something different. So
Totally. Yeah.
but on the flip side of that, like they also modeled very well that they didn't follow what other people believed. So I think even though they didn't model to me with words, like you can have your own belief system outside of our family,
Yeah.
I watched them push against other people. And
Yeah.
so therefore it still taught me how to find my own ground. So like I
Yes.
want parents to know, like be encouraged that that's something that as a parent they're your words can be loud and they can say what they say, but when it comes down to it, your actions and what you're doing, how you're showing them how you interact with the world is what they're going to pick up on. Because I'm a very
Exactly.
strong opinionated woman, and if you were to look at like how I was raised, this was the little box. Like they gave us a lot of freedom, but there was a lot of like, here's where we live,
Yeah.
but so model you can live outside the box. Right,
Yeah.
so I figured it out. So
Yeah.
what
Which
for
is
you?
that's really neat. That's
Yeah.
really neat. And again, I liked what you said. Um, talk is cheap with kids, really. Behavior is everything. They are watching our every move and they are learning that way. They learn by experience, not just by being told. And they learn by watching us navigate difficult experiences and how we do that. And so I really appreciated that you said, my parents maybe weren't explicit with language
Hmm.
around this kind of pushing against boundaries thing, and yet they really modeled that for me, and that's something that is a real, incredible attribute that you have, Cassie, is this kind of opinionated, strong, female force in the world. So how cool
Yeah,
that
it's very cool.
that that was supported and fostered in you, and that, and also it's just really neat that you can acknowledge too, like, some of the challenges, because you did talk about food kind of becoming an addiction for you because of the associations and the way that your family related to food growing up.
Yeah.
um and how powerful for you to like acknowledge that and say, hey, like I kind of created this in my own family system kind of unknowingly, and I'm course correcting, which I
Yeah.
think is really important. That's actually like a huge success, I think, in being a parent, is being able to kind of notice when we maybe make a mistake or direct our kids in a way that, is sort of our baggage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, because that comes up a lot. And then we make amends. And I
Yeah.
think that's another powerful aspect of the manifesto, which I'm excited to read
Yeah.
again. But yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. That's really
Yeah.
neat, Cassie.
And
Thanks.
before you share, I just wanted to add one more thing. What was
Yeah,
interesting is actually the gift of addiction is the 12 steps. Like, I really
yeah,
do believe that, unfortunately, having an addiction sucks, right? But the
yeah,
gift that 12 step gives you of being able to process, and I actually was telling someone last night that, actually, it was my mom. I was telling her, I was like, my son is going through his own food addiction, journey, and I've gone through it, and I'm like, but the beauty of it is my son is 15. People usually don't learn this until they're in their 40s, 50s. I mean, it's not
right.
often that people figure it out until they really jack their lives up, and then they're
Yeah,
like, oh crap, I have to fix it. So I
yeah,
think the gift is in, because I struggle with addiction, hopefully my kids will have, not to say that they won't struggle, because they will.
yeah,
Everyone is going to struggle, but they will have the tools. I think
yes,
that's the biggest thing that you and I want to share is like the tools make the difference. The tools
yeah,
are what change lives. Like
yeah,
being able to make amends, like that's probably the biggest thing for me is just last night, my son and I were having a conversation, and my switch flipped, and I was like, oh man, I could feel all of my triggers. I knew it was happening.
yeah,
Even in the moment as the words came out of my mouth, I was like, oh, what am I doing? But I quickly corrected. I course corrected. I
yeah,
apologized. I was like, I'm so sorry. My own issues got in the way. And I told him,
yeah,
like, I'm here for you. Let me change this. So,
yeah,
anyways, I just wanted to add that it's a gift, but it's also a curse, right? Like it's a hard thing to go through,
absolutely.
but if you find the tools, it's not. It's easy.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and not to go on another tangent, but you know, um, there is a developmental component to addiction. And so if we are learning about how to navigate and monitor behaviors and how they whether they're adaptive or maladaptive early
Mhm.
on, and we can learn the process of when we've engaged in a behavior that's maladaptive, what we need to do to sort of course correct, including making amends. It's
Yeah.
incredibly powerful because there is this kind of developmental component to the predisposition for substance abuse and addiction later. And and a lot of that is experience and our genes, our DNA. So I think the opportunity that you have with your son is really, really, really powerful, and one that I think um, many families aren't like they aren't privy to their kids' challenges. And
Yeah.
so they aren't a part of that process of addressing it for them. And I think that, it's through no fault of anybody's, but a lot of times kids keep things secret or parents aren't aware. And it's so beautiful that you have this awareness and can walk through this and support your son in his journey.
Yeah.
Um, because so many kids are needing that right now. Like from the statistics that we read last week, like shocking,
Yeah.
like 61%,
Yeah.
like an increase of 61% of substance abuse among teens since, 2016. It's insane.
Yeah. It's
So,
crazy. Well, and I
uh,
think too, like it was interesting because in that moment, so like I am a super empath. I'm super sensitive. And I used to think it was all my feelings. So in
yeah,
that moment, what I actually realized is my response to him, my reaction was me feeling his fear. He was actually
totally,
afraid that he
totally.
could see me shifting. So I like stopped for a second and I felt it. And it was really uncomfortable. I was
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh, I'm panicking. I could feel the nervousness. I could feel the fear. And then I was like, okay, in this moment, I have two options. I can either go down the fear path and like put him in a little bubble wrap and like tell him these are all the things, what's going to happen. Or we could both get really uncomfortable and
yeah,
feel our feelings, have a conversation. And I could say, like, hey, I'm feeling scared too. This is
yes,
what I'm feeling. And so
yeah.
we did that. And in that moment, like a tear, it's gonna make me cry again. Like a tear rolled down his cheek. And I felt the
Oh,
relief of him feeling connected. Like all of a sudden, we went from
yes,
me being a parent to him feeling seen. and heard.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
was like, it was so beautiful to be able to
Yes.
like, I felt like that was the biggest win in my whole life of parenting, like to see my
Yes.
son, who this is my son that he doesn't feel like he doesn't like to feel. He likes to just, let's not talk about feelings. Don't look me
Yeah.
in the eye.
Yeah.
I like made him look me in the eye. I was like, this is uncomfortable for me too, but I'm here for you. And I
Yes.
get you're scared. I feel it too. I'm nervous. I'm scared. Like, but we're gonna get through this together. And he
Yes.
just like released. Like you could see he was like, oh my
Yes.
God, I feel supported.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was such a gift.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing what being seen, that felt sense of being seen and that sense of attunement and connection, really to any person in our lives.
yeah,
What a difference that can make. That is probably the most therapeutic tool we have to offer is our attunement and our ability to like support connection and to counteract disengagement because a lot of what I think drives um addictive behavior is this like sense of isolation or
yeah,
disconnection and it only fosters and feeds that like when we engage in a numbing behavior we're further disconnected. So how
yeah,
powerful that you had that
yeah.
opportunity to connect and see your son and he felt it and he felt it in such a beautiful way. I just love that, Cassie.
Well, and
Yeah.
I really feel like this, what we're doing here, has allowed me to implement better into my parenting, like us being able to talk about it and make it less like no, no, like hush, hush. Like people don't want to admit when they suck at parenting. Like that's just like how I know we don't suck, but like in our heads, that's what we're telling ourselves.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so to be able to talk here and be like, hey, it's okay, it's normal, even though you
Yeah.
know it, to be able to live it is a whole different story. So I'm so
Totally.
grateful for this space and for what we're doing here to be able to allow us
Yeah.
to step into our vulnerability and to be
Totally.
seen and heard as well. Because I think for our kids for us to see them and hear them, they're also allowing us to be seen and heard because we're
Yeah.
being totally vulnerable.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
But
I
how
would love
cool.
to hear yours. Yeah.
I'm like, oh gosh, it was
We didn't even
like
come
these
back here.
ice. This is a nice, rich, meaty icebreaker,
Yeah.
and so I feel okay that it's taking some time because I think it's a neat one.
Yeah.
I think that it is really important, honestly, to have some perspective, take some perspective about, what you garnered from your childhood that you're carrying into your adulthood, both positive and negative. So,
Mm.
two things for me. One, my family, uh, my family sent us messages both verbally and non-verbally. My sister and I, this like you're getting girls, you're capable of anything. And like my dad and my mom both modeled that. They were incredibly hard workers and um just worked really, really hard. And so I feel like for me, I had like that modeling of really like feeling that like if I put enough effort and work into something that I could, really achieve anything.
Wow.
Um and um and that like I have a lot of really negative messages from my childhood. So like just know that like but that is one of the things that I think has really allowed me to be someone not only who survives but thrives because I'm like if I commit to this work, if I engage in it, if I get into it, um, and throw myself into it, what I put into it, I'll get out of it. And
Yeah.
it's really empowered me in a lot of ways. Um, and it's something that my dad still will say, like he'll still say to me, "You're getting scroll, you're capable of anything." And it's just was really neat messaging
Yeah.
that I
So
got.
repeat it again. Your guinea scroll. I was going to ask you, your guinea scroll. Say the words
Oh,
again.
sorry. A Giddings girl.
A
You're a
Giddings,
Giddings girl.
Giddings
Girl. Sorry, I'm not
scroll. Okay. I was
articulating.
like a Giddings scroll. What is the scroll?
Okay, sorry.
A
So a
Giddings
Giddings
girl.
girl.
Because
And
that's
and
your
because
last
that's
name,
my
right?
maiden
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah, maiden name.
That
And I
makes sense.
forgot to change my name down here. So I'm Genevieve, guys, not Erin.
Oh,
By
yeah.
the way.
By the way.
Sorry about that.
By the way.
I use her account. But yeah, you're a Giddings girl.
Hmm.
Giddings girl. you can do anything. And
Well,
just really powerful. My sister still talks about that message too. Like both of us consistently got that message. And my sister actually is like the real go-getter.
yeah.
I'm the black sheep of the family.
No, you're a
Yes.
go-getter too. I've seen you do amazing things just in the last, what, like 2 months we've known each other. You've overcome so many things that you're like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, but she's
Yeah.
doing
Here it, that's the thing. If it was modeled for me. If you put your mind to something, and you really work at it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And so like I have a lot of fears and I still like dig in and I'm like, I can do hard things. Like I love that. I can do hard things. And I know that that was the messaging that I got.
You
I
know, it's
think one of the things, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to say, it's funny when you said a Giddings girl, then it made me think about, we actually say this to our boys. We were like, you're a Steele. Steels have integrity. Like our thing is integrity. And so I
Yeah,
was thinking to myself, I wonder if my kids someday will say that, like, you're a Steele. Like that. My parents always used to tell us, we have integrity. We never lie. We
yeah,
just were,
yeah,
even if it's like uncomfortable, we're
yeah,
transparent to a fault. Like that's
yeah,
probably one of the things. It can be a superpower, but it also can be a little bit like,
yeah,
okay, knowing when to be transparent, but
totally,
definitely like
totally.
you have integrity. So I was
Yes,
just thinking
yes.
that. Sorry, I had to say it out loud.
It's no, I love that. And again, I think it's like really important. These are messages that do carry on. Like we the impact of every single thing that we do as a parent carries on. And
Yeah.
it's generational. It's
Yeah.
generational. And so, I think one of the things that I think is really beautiful about about family systems is that they are plastic, just like the brain. They're plastic, they can evolve and change.
Yeah.
um and we can like think there are things in family systems that just carry over generationally because it's a common message that is given both implicitly and explicitly. And I think it's really neat to see that progression. And some messages we carry on are positive and
Yeah.
some are negative.
Yeah.
um and the work we have to do, is to really look at that. Like how is this serving me?
Yeah.
How is this serving my family system? How's, this serving the people that I care about? It's really important to have that reflection. But the other thing that I think is really interesting is if you think about like the modeling piece and the messages that you and I both got, those were our family's manifestos. They were aspects of our family's manifesto. Even though our family maybe never wrote a manifesto,
Yep.
they're
It's
that's
unwritten.
essentially what it was. Like these are the
Yeah.
beliefs, these are the values that we are going to impart to our children. And so
Hmm.
I think this is a really neat opportunity then to go back to Brené's manifesto,
Yes, absolutely.
and read it if you don't mind, Cassie.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think just thinking about, as we're reading it, thinking about what resonates for us and for everybody, thinking about what resonates for you. And are there some things that you feel like you would add, or is there an interest in developing your own manifesto for your children as a parent? Just
Yeah.
something to think about.
So do you want to read? We could like ping pong. Do you want to read back and forth? Like I read a few and
So
you read a few, or
unfortunately, I don't have the hard copy
oh,
book.
that's
I just
right.
had the recording. So I was like, it would be really cool to play Renee's voice and hear her
Okay.
say it in her voice. But like you said, YouTube has licensing stuff.
Yeah,
So
they're gonna block it out. So I was
yeah,
just thinking though, I think what I'd like to do, I'm learning this from let's see if I can find it, Wholehearted Inventory. So Brene Brown, actually, I want to plug her because we're so grateful for her book and for this parenting manifesto. I'm
yes,
actually going to share this because that is something that I'm learning from he's like my mentor for teaching and facilitating.
yes.
Parenting manifesto. Here we go. Okay. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I'm going to throw it up and see if we can, if it's easy for you to read. And then that way everyone can see it, because something that I'm learning is that when we hear things, it's fine. But when you see it and you hear it and like
Yes,
all those different things connect, it's a lot better. So
yes,
it's
absolutely.
downloading right now and then I'll share it. Okay. So
Absolutely. And I would say that's very true, Cassie. Like I do better with these book studies. I do better if I have a hard copy and I'm listening at the same time, or if I listen and then go back and read.
yes.
So I agree with you like that. Oh,
Look at
great.
us go. So
Perfect.
I'm gonna zoom it in so we can actually read it like so that way if people are on their phone, they
Yes,
can still
that
kind of
sounds
see it.
perfect.
I wonder if I
Yeah,
can,
and I'd love to tag team reading it with you if you want,
yeah,
Cassie.
that
That
would be
sounds
great.
great.
Okay, so I wish I could shut this window. I don't know how to do that. Maybe we're just gonna leave it because if I don't want to shut it and mess it up. So if you want a copy of this, I will put the link in our when we come back and I finish, I'll put the link in our YouTube. Actually, you know what? I could do it right now. I'm like super techie right now. I'm
Look
super
at her.
impressed with myself. Look at me go. It's already
This is
dropped in the chat. And
this
you
is she's amazing. This is why she's running this right now.
like a whole new level. I think I just showed up
Eventually,
today.
eventually I'll be able to like do this from my YouTube channel and Cassie won't have to do it all by herself.
It's
And I'll
okay.
get more savvy. I'll get
You
more
are gonna
savvy.
get more savvy. I
I
already
am.
feel like it's growing in you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so do you want to start us off? And then I'm gonna
Sure.
scroll up a little bit. Oops. I
Sure.
want people to
So
see the title. That way, if they come across it and they're like, "Ooh, what are they doing?" It doesn't
yeah.
want to.
And
There we go.
so what I love if just first to say, Brene developed this manifesto for her family and she and her husband really try to embody all of these values and support their children. And it's really cool that she shared it with us.
Yeah.
So it says the whole parting. Oh, sorry. I'm going to stop, do my little speaking exercise. I want to be able to be articulate. The wholehearted parenting manifesto. Above all else, I want you to know that you are loved and lovable. You will learn this from my words and actions. The lessons on love are in how I treat you and how I treat myself.
You want me to go now? We'll go back and
Yeah,
forth.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. I want you to engage with the world from a place of worthiness. You will learn that you are worthy of love, belonging, and joy every time you see me practice self compassion and embrace my own imperfections.
We will practice courage in our family by showing up, letting ourselves be seen, and honoring vulnerability. We will share our stories of struggle and strength. There will always be room in our home for both.
We will teach you compassion by practicing compassion with ourselves first, then with each other. We will set and respect boundaries. We will honor hard work, hope, and perseverance. Rest and play will be family values as well as family practices.
You will learn accountability and respect by watching me make mistakes and make amends, and by watching how I ask for what I need and talk about how I feel.
I want you to know joy, so together we will practice gratitude.
I want you to feel joy, so together we will learn how to be vulnerable.
When uncertainty and scarcity visit, you will be able to draw from the spirit that is a part of our everyday life.
Together we will cry and face fear and grief. I will want to take away your pain, but instead I will sit with you and teach you how to feel it.
We will laugh and sing and dance and create. We will always have permission to be ourselves with each other, no matter what. You will always belong here.
Mhm. As you begin your wholehearted journey, the greatest gift that I can give you is to live and love with my whole heart and to dare greatly.
I will not teach or love or show you anything perfectly, but I will let you see me, and I will always hold sacred the gift of seeing you, truly, deeply seeing you.
Mhm.
It's just so beautiful.
So
I,
beautiful. And again, like this, how, like, what a beautiful way to do it. Like to have different voices reading it,
yeah,
to be, and to be thinking about it, to to see it there physically instead of in the book or to just hear it.
Yeah.
Um, I love this. And I feel like much of what she writes about are things that I resonate with and embody as a parent.
Mm.
Um, because I really do have an intention of showing up and being vulnerable and attached and attuned and engaged with my child. But this is the most beautiful, this is just the most beautiful encapsulation
Yeah.
of what I envision, like just most of us needing as humans, and it's certainly our children needing from us. And it's not perfection.
Hmm.
This is all about, much of this is about the mistakes we make and moving through those. And so it's just really beautiful.
And you know what's interesting? So I want to ask you, um, what parts, like as I was reading and as I was listening, what's really cool is experiencing it differently, reading it together. There were
Hmm.
pieces when you were reading, it was like, oh, I felt it. And then there was pieces where that I was reading, I felt it. What were the
Hmm.
ones that really stuck out to you? Like, did you have one or two that maybe you were like, oh yeah, this one really hits me in the feelings because I think I lacked it as a child, or maybe not even that you lacked it, but it's like you just desire to have this in your parenting so greatly that it's like, oh, I feel this with my whole being.
Yeah. I think the one that and honestly there's a reason why I'm really resonating with this one right now. And no, a reason why I would just always resonate with this one is um the belong you will always belong here. So I'll read it again. We will laugh and sing and dance and create. We will always have permission to be ourselves with each other. No matter what, you will always belong here.
I love
And
that.
I think the reason that that really resonates for me is because of my, just my emphasis on attachment and my expertise in attachment bonding between a parent and a child. And that is really the crux of everything. It's the cornerstone with which children spring off is knowing that they belong and knowing they're bonded and safe in that they belong someplace. And when I work with kids who are struggling, overarchingly, it's because they just don't feel like they belong in some way. They don't feel like they fit. They don't feel like they're seen. So,
Absolutely. Well, and
yeah,
I want to say she actually she did an interview and I don't remember who it was with. I just love all of her stuff, but she
me
did
too.
an interview where she talked about excuse me, fitting in versus belonging. She said
Yes.
you don't want to just fit in because fitting
No.
in means you're conforming to the group, but
Yeah.
belonging means you can come as you are and you fit
Yes.
in no matter what. Like you don't
Yes.
have to fit the mold, you don't have to be blonde with blue
Yeah.
eyes, you don't have to be a cheer. Like I think when you read this, what I remembered was high school. High
Yeah.
school was so hard for me because I didn't fit in anywhere. And
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I belonged. And
Yeah.
so when you don't fit in and you don't belong, what does that leave you with? Like
Yes.
isolation. And
Yes.
I think, by sophomore year, I had decided that I didn't want to do school anymore because I didn't fit in, I didn't belong. What was the point? Like I in my head was like, I thought high school was about learning how to be a human.
Yeah.
And yes, you're learning, information, but I really felt like I understood high school to be the platform for learning how to be an adult. And if I didn't fit in here, then I might as well just skip to adulthood and like
Yes.
try and figure it out there because it wasn't working at school.
Right.
And, very quickly my parents were like, well, you know, you can do that. Like you can drop out of school, get your GED, but you're going to have to pay rent. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, that's a big fat no. I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. So that was how they convinced me to stay in school because I was like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna pay rent. I mean, it was like so small, like $300 or something crazy, but it was enough
Right.
for me as a
Right.
16-year-old to be like, oh, that's
Totally.
not fun. But
Yeah.
I think it's something to be talked about amongst parents because I see it time and time again watching my sons and like we're very involved at the school. So like when they have cross country meets and they have basketball, we're always engaging with the teens. Like
Mhm.
that's probably one of the number one reasons I do that is I engage with teenagers often because I don't
Yes,
want them to feel like they can't be seen by an adult just because I'm an
totally.
adult. Like
Exactly.
I will come and
Exactly.
high five. I'll come and say, "Hey, that was a great run," or "Hey, that shot was great," or like, "Hey, I saw
Yeah.
you look like you were struggling a bit, like you look a little down. You did amazing." Like
Yeah.
that's our job. My husband and I, we make it our job to see every single child on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, the cross country team, we can't really do that with, but the basketball team, like we've always been the
Yes.
parents that the kids know because we want
Yes.
them to be seen and
Yeah.
valued and heard. So I love that that's the one that you picked. Um, the one
What's
that
the
I
one you would pick?
yeah, the one that I felt actually there was two as well, but I think the one that I'm leaning more towards, I was trying to find there were two that talked about not being perfect. Uh, so it was
There's one about accountability by watching me make mistakes and make amends. Is that the
yes.
one or?
So that one is really good. That's probably my number two. But I
Okay.
think that the top one is going to be I will not teach or love or show you
Yes.
anything perfectly, but I will let you
Yeah.
see me, and I will always hold sacred the gift of seeing you, truly deeply seeing you,
Yes.
because
Hmm.
I I know my parents saw me, but they
Yes.
saw me through the lens of their own trauma, like their own
Yeah.
issues. And so when I needed to be seen, I think that it happened, but I also think there was still like they lacked the ability to, well, I don't want to say they lacked it. They probably had the ability to, but as a parent, I see how difficult it is now to like
Yeah.
stop yourself. It's almost like you have to stop feeling for just a second to
Yeah.
go, oh, wait a minute. What do I need to be first? Because
Yeah.
this person isn't cognitively like they're not developed. They need to have guidance. And
Right.
as much as I want to be like, but I have my feelings, I have to stop myself for just a second, long
Right.
enough to say,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to feel this together. I need to make sure that they're seen as well. But I think not doing it perfectly. Like I used to think
Yeah.
I wanted my kids to have this perfect little life and, we'd go on vacation and they'd be successful in everything they do and get good grades. But
No,
that's not the
it's
reality.
messy.
Like,
It's
uh,
messy.
yeah,
It's
it's so
messy,
messy.
but it's a beautiful mess. It's
Yeah.
just it's like I think about it a lot. I think like if you can take joy in the mess, just like a kid takes joy in finger painting, like
Yeah.
just like if you can take joy in the messiness of it, I think that's important. Like find the joy. I want to know the joy and practice the gratitude of the mess and it's not perfect and it's not going to be. And if we can just embrace that and acknowledge when we make mistakes or when there are pitfalls or growth edges for us, we're modeling for our kids that it's
Yeah.
okay and safe to do that too, and that doesn't it doesn't what's the word I'm looking for? It's not it's it serves you better to be
Yes.
able to admit it serves you better to be able to recognize that you're imperfect.
Yeah.
And that you're not even trying to achieve perfection. You're trying to achieve wholeheartedness. Like
Yeah.
that, I love this. Like it's not the thing, this is the wholehearted parenting manifesto. This is not the perfect parenting manifesto.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And when we're
I love that.
wholehearted, we embraced it all, the mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
I love her stories in the book where she shares, the mess that she made with her kids, like when she makes
totally.
mistakes, how she brings it to the table.
Yeah.
And I'm really being more intentional with modeling. And actually it's funny because my word this year is whole, like
Yeah.
whole and balanced, basically experiencing it all because we cannot have the light without the dark and we can't have
Absolutely.
the contrast without having both ends of it, right? Like so we
Yeah.
don't know until we experience. And I think the experience for our kids is going to be, oh, my parents are making mistakes, but it's okay because they can. I think so often
Yeah.
as parents, we want our children not to go through the things we went through. So like we're trying to create this unrealistic path of like,
Yeah.
it's like bowling. You put the little bumpers on, and we're trying to put these
Yeah.
bumpers up, and
Yeah.
but what happens when you put bumpers on? The ball goes to the right and bounces back and hits the left. Like
Yeah.
in order to strike, to do it right, you just got to have balance and find the middle of the
Yeah.
road and do it
Totally.
nice and easy.
Yeah.
Like no bumpers. Like you might fall
Yeah.
in a ditch occasionally, but that's
Yeah.
okay. Like falling
Yeah.
in a ditch is part of the process. You got to build the strength to crawl out of it too.
Totally.
It's not
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, gosh, this was
Yeah,
great.
it
So
was so good.
I want to encourage people to like to think about that, like as parents, or even, I mean, I think the wholehearted parenting manifesto, I think could really translate just to relationship. Like, how do we show up in relationship? And
Absolutely.
granted, she acknowledges, and that's one of the reasons I love Brene is that she's like, we're built for connection, and
Yeah.
you know that the critical, most formative relationship is with our family, but this, you know, a manifesto of relationship, and I think there's a lot that we can integrate, and I think there's more we can offer. So thinking about what you might add to
Yeah.
this or how you might adopt this and adapt it.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Maybe
is,
that's our assignment this week. What do you
I
think?
think so.
I think
Yeah.
we should bring something back, like one single thought, or if you
Yes.
have one, you can, but at least one,
Yes.
share it. And
I think
actually,
that's great.
maybe we make that an assignment for social media. Like maybe you share it as like a little quote on your own social media
Yeah.
page. What is one thing as a parent, your parenting manifesto? Because I have a lot of coaches who follow me, a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people who are doing the same thing we're doing.
Yeah.
And I would love for people to share the things in their life that they're
Yes.
building around their parenting manifesto.
I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yay. How
Yeah.
fun.
Drop it in the comments. We would love to hear it here on
Yeah.
this episode as well.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Man, thank
this
you.
is
This
good.
is wonderful. Yeah.
It's really good. I wish Sarah was here because I'm so curious. Maybe we'll just have her bring hers next week.
Yes.
And hopefully she's on the mend. I think she's already in that space, like mending it up. So we'll look forward to having her back next week. Tune in. I don't know what our topic is going to
Yeah.
be, but we're going to be in February. So we talked about love and relationships and like codependency.
Yeah. I think I
You
think
might
love and relationships, like interpersonal effectiveness, kind of, I think all
intimacy.
of that would be really good. Just kind of delving into the interpersonal
Yeah,
and the
absolutely.
intrapersonal too. You know, I think it'll be
Yes.
really neat
Yeah,
for
and I think
February.
intimacy like should be one of the topics. We did talk
Yes.
about, how to talk to kids about sex. I think what I'd like to actually do is maybe even have like a separate episode that would be in addition to our regularly weekly schedule. And we'll
Yes.
just call it, hey, this is if you're struggling with talking with your child because you and
Yes.
Aaron have such a good
Yes.
hold on that topic. I really want to make
Yes.
sure that we allow parents to tune into that so they can have
Yes. I
more
like that
comfortable
idea.
conversations because
Mhm.
you and I just talking about having that episode and what you do has allowed me to
Yeah.
have multiple conversations with my son. Like
Neat.
it's funny because he overheard us. One of my sons did when we were talking about like different things. And so it led to a conversation of like, yeah, I heard you guys talking about that. And so we talked about it, and
That's
it was
great.
good. So
That's great.
yeah.
Yes. I love that. I'm super excited, and I do want to let everybody know that we are going to be actually really diving deeply into, sorry,
It's okay. It's all good.
diving deeply into chapter 4 of Daring Greatly
Oh
on tomorrow, or yeah, Saturday,
yeah. The book club, yes.
for our book study.
Yep.
There are, you know, there's ways to link to that from the thumbnail here. There are ways to link to that from Sarah Placencia. Did I say it right?
Yes, you said it
Pla-
right. Good job.
Placencia's page, The Sweat Life.
Yeah.
And then there's also the link is available on my self-care for caregivers group, private Facebook group, which anyone is welcome to join. Um, and it starts at 7 a.m. uh Pacific Standard Time. Is that right?
I
7
think so.
7
Yeah.
7 a.m. Pacific
Mhm.
Standard Time, 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard
Oh,
Time. And
you got it.
it's a just a really fun venue to talk more deeply about this
Yeah.
content that we're reading, you
Yeah.
know. So
And
well,
you don't
maybe
have to be reading it. Like I think
mm-mm.
we talk enough about what's in the book. And if you're tuning in here, you already kind of know because we've been
Yeah,
discussing a lot of what Renee talks about. So just tune in and
exactly.
get involved and connect. Like that's really we're trying to just create more connection. Um,
Connection.
I have a Facebook page, like a Facebook group, but it's not really for this type of thing. I'm actually thinking about adding a different group to be able to connect in for mental health awareness.
Yeah.
The one that I have right now is more around business. So I think it
Yeah.
would be fun to create a Facebook group. But I also am on Instagram, TikTok. Actually,
Yeah.
TikTok, I'm thinking about sharing more and more about the stuff we're sharing here because I
Cool.
think people really need to be aware. So I'm
Yes.
hoping we'll get that going too.
Awesome. Thanks,
Yeah,
Cassie.
you're
This was
welcome. Thank
lovely
you.
again. And
Yes.
hopefully I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Yes. So we have the OU
Okay.
Invitational. I'm in Oklahoma, so our kids get
Okay.
to actually go run on the OU like indoor track. So they're very
Neat.
excited. But I think I can make the book club beforehand because I think we don't have to leave until a little bit later in the morning. So
Okay, cool. Cool.
yeah.
Well, we'll hope to see you. Thanks.
Yes. All
All
right.
right.
See you later.